with specific objectives. Graphic design is an interdisciplinary branch of design and of the fine arts. Its practice involves creativity, innovation and lateral thinking using manual or digital tools, where it is usual to use text and graphics to communicate visually. The role of the graphic designer in the communication process is that of encoder or interpreter of the message. They work on the interpretation, ordering, and presentation of visual messages. Usually, graphic design uses the aesthetics of topography and the compositional arrangement of the text, ornamentation, and imagery to convey ideas, feelings, and attitudes beyond what language alone expresses. The design work can be based on a customer's demand, a demand that ends up being established linguistically, either orally or in writing. That is, that graphic design transforms a linguistic message into a graphic manifestation. Graphic design has, as a field of application, different areas of knowledge focused on any visual communication system. For example, it can be applied in advertising strategies, or it can also be applied in the aviation world or space exploration. In this sense, in some countries graphic design is related as only associated with the production of sketches and drawings. This is incorrect, since visual communication is a small part of a huge range of types and classes where it can be applied. With origins in antiquity and the Middle Ages, graphic design as applied art was initially linked to the boom of rise of printing in Europe in the 15th century and the growth of consumer culture in the Industrial Revolution. From there it emerged as a distinct profession in the West, closely associated with advertising in the 19th century, and its evolution allowed its consolidation in the 20th century. Given the rapid and massive growth in information exchange today, the demand for experienced designers is greater than ever, particularly because of the development of new technologies and the need to pay attention to human factors beyond the competence of the engineers who develop them. Contents: 1. Terminology. 2. History. 2.1 The advent of printing. 2.2 19th century. 2.3 20th century. 3 applications. 4 skills. 4.1 Topography. 4.2 Page layout. 5 tools. 5.1 Computers and software. 6 related design fields. 6.1 Interface design. 6.2 User experience design. 6.3 Experiential graphic design. 7 occupations. 7.1 Crowdsourcing in graphic design. 8 See also. 8.1 Related areas. 8.2 Related topics. 9 References. 10 Bibliography. 11 External links. Terminology. William Addison Dwiggins is often credited with first using the term graphic design in a 1922 article, although it appears in the 4th of July 1908 issue of Organized Labor, a publication of the labor unions of San Francisco, in an article about technical education for printers, an enterprising trades union. The admittedly high standard of intelligence which prevails among printers is an assurance that with the elemental principles of design at their finger ends, many of them will grow in knowledge and develop into specialists in graphic design and decorating. A decade later, the 1917-1918 course catalog of the California School of Arts and Crafts advertised a course titled Graphic Design and Lettering, which replaced one called Advanced Design and Lettering. Both classes were taught by Frederick Meyer. History. Main article. History of graphic design. In both its lengthy history and in the relatively recent explosion of visual communication in the 20th and 21st centuries, the distinction between advertising, art, graphic design and fine art has disappeared. They share many elements, theories, principles, practices, languages and sometimes the same benefactor or client. In advertising, the ultimate objective is the sale of goods and services. In graphic design, the essence is to give order to information, form to ideas, expression, and feeling to artifacts that document the human experience. The advent of printing, Main article: History of Printing. In China, during the Tang Dynasty, woodblocks were cut to print on textiles, and later to reproduce Buddhist texts. A Buddhist scripture printed in 868 is the earliest known printed book. Beginning in the 11th century in China, longer scrolls and books were produced using movable type printing, making books widely available during the Song dynasty. In the mid-15th century in Mainz, Germany, Johannes Gutenberg developed a way to reproduce printed pages at a faster pace using movable type made with a new metal alloy that created a revolution in the dissemination of information. 19th century. In 1849, Henry Cole became one of the major forces in design education in Great Britain, informing the government of the importance of design in his Journal of Design and Manufactures. He organized the Great Exhibition as a celebration of modern industrial technology and Victorian design. From 1891 to 1896, William Morris Kelmscott Press was a leader in graphic design associated with the arts and crafts movement, creating handmade books in medieval and Renaissance-era style. In addition to wallpaper and textile designs, Morris' work, along with the rest of the private press movement, directly influenced Art Nouveau. Cover of the Thanksgiving 1895 issue of the chapbook, designed by Will H. Bradley. Will H. Bradley became one of the notable graphic designers in the late 19th century due to creating art pieces in various Art Nouveau styles. Bradley created a number of designs as promotions for a literary magazine titled The Chapbook. One of them was a Thanksgiving poster that was finished in 1895. The poster is recognized for including a system of curved lines and forms. The poster also borrows elements from Japanese printing styles by using flat-colored planes. Bradley's works have proven to be inspiration as the concept of art posters would become more commonplace by the early 20th century. In addition, art posters would become a significant aspect in the subject of advertising. 20th century. A Boeing 747 aircraft with livery designating it as Air Force One. The cyan forms, the U.S. flag, presidential seal and the Caslin lettering were all designed at different times by different designers for different purposes, and combined by designer Raymond Loewy in this one single aircraft exterior design. This section needs expansion with the developments of this period greatly influenced contemporary graphic design. You can help by adding to it. In 1917, Frederick H. Meyer, director and instructor at the California School of Arts and Crafts, taught a class entitled Graphic Design and Lettering. Raff's Graphic Design, published in 1927, was the first book to use graphic design in its title. The signage in the London Underground is a classic design example of the modern era. Although he lacked artistic training, Frank Pick led the underground group design and publicity movement. The first underground station signs were introduced in 1908 with a design of a solid red disc with a blue bar in the center and the name of the station. The station name was in white sans serif letters. It was in 1916 when Pick used the expertise of Edward Johnston to design a new typeface for the underground. Johnston redesigned the underground sign and logo to include his typeface on the blue bar in the center of a red circle. In the 1920s, Soviet constructivism applied intellectual production in different spheres of production. The movement saw individualistic art as useless in revolutionary Russia, and thus moved towards creating objects for utilitarian purposes. They designed buildings, theater sets, posters, fabrics, clothing, furniture, logos, menus, etc. Jen Chichold codified the principles of modern typography in his 1928 book, New Topography. He later repudiated the philosophy he espoused in this book as fascistic, but it remained influential. Chichold, Bauhaus typographers such as Herbert Bayer and Laszlo Moholy-Nagy and L. Lissitzky greatly influenced graphic design. They pioneered production techniques and stylistic devices used throughout the 20th century. The following years saw graphic design in the modern style gain widespread acceptance and application. The post-World War II American economy revealed a greater need for graphic design, mainly in advertising and packaging. The spread of the German Bauhaus School of Design to Chicago in 1937 brought a mass-produced minimalism to America, sparking modern architecture and design. Notable names in mid-century modern design include Adrian Frediger, designer of the typefaces Univers and Frediger; Paul Rand, who took the principles of the Bauhaus and applied them to popular advertising and logo design, helping to create a uniquely American approach to European minimalism while becoming one of the principal pioneers of corporate identity, a subset of graphic design. Alex Stein Weiss is credited with the invention of the album cover, and Joseph Muller Brockman, who designed posters in a severe yet accessible manner typical of the 1950s and 1970s era. The professional graphic design industry grew in parallel with consumerism. This raised concerns and criticisms, notably from within the graphic design community, with the First Things First manifesto, first launched by Ken Garland in 1964. It was republished as the First Things First 2000 Manifesto in 1999 in the magazine Emigre 51, stating, "We propose a reversal of priorities in favor of more useful, lasting and democratic forms of communication. A mind shift away from product marketing and toward the exploration and production of a new kind of meaning." The scope of debate is shrinking. It must expand. Consumerism is running uncontested. It must be challenged by other perspectives expressed, in part, through the visual languages and resources of design. Both editions attracted signatures from practitioners and thinkers such as Rudy van der Lans, Eric Spiekerman, Ellen Lupton and Rick Poynter. 2000 Manifesto was also published in Adbusters, known for its strong critiques of visual culture. Applications. Color. Graphic design can have many applications, from road signs to technical schematics and reference manuals. It is often used in branding products and elements of company identity such as logos, colors, packaging and text as part of From scientific journals to news reporting, the presentation of opinion and facts is often improved with graphics and thoughtful compositions of visual information, known as information design. With the advent of the web, information designers with experience in interactive tools are increasingly used to illustrate the background to news stories. Information design can include data visualization, which involves using programs to interpret and form data into a visually compelling presentation, and can be tied in with information graphics. Skills. A graphic design project may involve the creative presentation of existing text, ornament, and images. The process school is concerned with communication. It highlights the channels and media through which messages are transmitted and by which senders and receivers encode and decode these messages. The semiotic school treats a message as a construction of signs which, through interaction with receivers, produces meaning. Communication as an agent. Topography. Main article. Topography. Topography includes type design, modifying type glyphs and arranging type. Type glyphs are created and modified using illustration techniques. Type arrangement is the selection of typefaces, point size, tracking, kerning and leading. Topography is performed by typesetters, compositors, topographers, graphic artists, art directors, and clerical workers. Until the digital age, topography was a specialized occupation. Certain fonts communicate or resemble stereotypical notions. For example, 1942 Report is a font which types text akin to a typewriter or a vintage report. Page layout. Main article. Page layout. Golden section in book design. Page layout deals with the arrangement of elements on a page, such as image placement, text layout and style. Page design has always been a consideration in printed material, and more recently extended to displays such as web pages. Elements typically consist of type, images, and occasionally placeholder graphics such as a D-line for elements that are not printed with ink, such as dye laser cutting, foil stamping or blind embossing. tools. In the mid-1980s, desktop publishing and graphic art software applications introduced computer image manipulation and creation capabilities that had previously been manually executed. Computers enabled designers